can talk about the sources, that we can talk about CO2. And I'm really grateful, for the scientists that actually do travel to the North Pole to provide empirical evidence on what it's actually about. But I think I want to take it down to a different place right now, because I don't think you have to go very far at all to see the evidence of where it all starts. Because before we can actually fix a problem, we kind of have to know exactly what it is we're dealing with. And bottom line, traditionally, our society and others around this world have a real problem truly, truly caring about poor people, period. And honestly, that level of care can be argued actually goes down depending on the darkness of one's skin. The dirty energy economy has always been subsidized on the backs of poor people, on their economic, physical, social, spiritual well-being. People of all different colors, either on the extraction side, like my friend Judy, or on the burning side. We all paid very, very dearly. If power, waste, and transportation industries had been built as easily in rich communities as they are in poor ones, we would have had a clean and green economy a long, long time ago. We really would not be in the dire climate situation that we're in right now if we, from the beginning, had bothered to act as if all people matter, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And it's really not about moving toward how do we create more sustainable world through technology. This is about basic human rights. Because when we cite dirty economic drivers and toxic agricultural practices near people, they have less of an opportunity to build the wealth that we're supposed to be doing as we do that. Their homes are devalued, and additionally, of course, their health is always compromised. If we know that asthma and diabetes, and obesity are all related, and are epidemic in poor neighborhoods, we should also know that a child's lungs are actually connected to a child's brain. We now know without a shadow of a doubt, Columbia University did a great study 3 years ago, which got almost no press whatsoever, that proximity to fossil fuel emissions actually causes learning disabilities in young children. It gets burned, kids breathe it in, it's a problem. And we now know that kids that do poorly in school have a better pathway to prison than onto higher education. Statistically, that is just the way that it is. The US, with only 5% of the world's population, we know, everybody in this room knows that we produce 25% of the world's greenhouse gases. We might not know that we also produce 25% of the world's incarcerated, right here in the land of the free. These two things are related. I grew up in the South Bronx in the 1970s and the 80s while it was burning, literally, because of some really bad, financial, we were in other financial crises before this one, believe it or not. And nearly half of the buildings in my community burned down. We lost 60% of our population, just like almost overnight, just gone. And my brother served 2 tours in Vietnam, was killed in the drug wars there as well. Our schools saw a lot less resources. Our police actually left the beat, ran around in patrol cars, which actually helped increase the divide that was already there between police and community. Manufacturing left the US in huge waves. My community was actually a walk-to-work community. One of the reasons why my father wanted to locate there in the 1940s was that, if he by chance got a job, he'd actually be able to walk to it. But they were located in places that allegedly did stuff cheaper, where there was cheaper labor. Unfortunately, they were the places that didn't have the same kind of hard-won labor or environmental rights that we had here. We sold our environmental laws and our labor laws, both hard-won, with blood, actually, for cheap goods that we generally just throw away. Many of the people infected in China are, like they are here, poor. Did we help them win democracy? Did we demand the same environmental practices that we had for them? Did we fight for their human rights? Or did we collectively sigh as we bought just another, flat screen TV? Or think, well, we're kind of doing our part, because lots of Americans are like going and supporting China by adopting children there. But what about the cost to America's unemployed? Or even the poor Black American child that needs love in a family too? As manufacturing moved out of places like the South Bronx, waste industries moved in, sewage, garbage, demolition, construction and demolition debris, all because of all the major construction booms that we've seen around. Poor people paid for that with the quality of our lives. And the result of all that is global climate crisis, the point sources for the greenhouse gases that each and every one of us are all trying to curb. You find them in the ghettos, where you find the mega hog farms, the mountaintop removal, the bus depots, all of that stuff, the power plants, the refineries, incinerators. Do you ever find these in any rich neighborhoods? Of course not. You shouldn't find them concentrated anywhere, rich or poor. They're really dangerous. And besides which, we can do better. We have to do better. And this is the good news. Global warming is going to do a couple things in North America that most folks absolutely agree will increase temperature and more intense rain with longer periods of no rain in between. Urban heat island is already a huge energy drain, and it's going to get worse. Stormwater management is already an enormous, huge energy drain. My goodness, it's really bad. So now, why is this a good thing, you're probably wondering? Well, the same things that cool our cities, real physical projects that cool our cities and manage stormwater naturally and for less money, also improves the quality of life for the folks who have been left behind. It's horticultural infrastructure, not a community garden or a tree here or there, which are great, and I love them, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about fully integrating this stuff, as integrated as it is as a sewage treatment plant, in a big urban center, large-scale urban forestry and green roofs, wetland restoration, green roofing as well. And we have to retrofit our energy economy with wind and solar, which is great. But the bottom line is, most of those jobs are actually going to go to folks that are already working in construction, electric, those kind of trades, and also in the auto industry. But there aren't enough real horticultural engineers in this world to restore the coastal and river wetlands. There aren't enough to install all the green roofs that need to be installed, to redesign parking lots and bring streets to full street canopy. These are very few. There are very few people that actually do that. I know I worked really hard back in 2003 to start one of the country's first green jobs training and placement systems. And we did it out of an absolute sense of desperation. We were excited about the possibility of invigorating and restoring our environment, but we were also just devastated by the fact that so many people in our community who actually wanted to be a part of the process were actually literally being passed over for those jobs. And in many cases, would often have to would take other stupid choices in their lives. We had, in addition to a very high poverty rate and unemployment rate, we also had a very high incarceration rate. So we realized, if this is work that needs to be done, why aren't we training people to do this? So we started that program called BEST, Bronx Environmental Stewardship Training Program. Then all we did was give folks the ability, the hard skills to do this work. But in doing so, we also gave them the confidence and an understanding that their work had an enormous amount to do with making their community and their world a better place. They were empowered simply because we empowered them to see themselves as not just a problem, but a major solution to the problems that we were having. And that's the way that we really do want to see people, because the work itself in horticultural infrastructure is incredibly therapeutic. It's been a very effective therapy for folks that have been through prison, through poverty, through combat even. And working with plants and the land actually restores people who have been damaged, whether by the oil wars or the drug wars or just life circumstances. taking care, quote, and I put that in quotes because I don't think we do it well, of people that go through those things costs a great deal. Those things, those folks that do that, they're very expensive people. Domestic abuse, drugs and alcohol, incarceration, poor educational outcomes, public health issues. Those costs are getting bigger each and every year. Those huge social costs, as a matter of fact, are often used as an argument by some folks that I know about why we can't really make investments, in the renewable energy. It's actually an either or. It's not. It's a both and. We can fix these costs and adapt to the climate change we know is coming, because climate change adaptation through horticultural infrastructure restores people and the planet at the same time. Imagine that. It can happen. Another important thing we need to think about is actually the national grid. Think of it as a sort of like an integrated system of transmission lines that will connect the places in our country that have renewable energy sources to the places that actually need the power. Like think wind in the Midwest and in California, to the other side. Think of it as a highway, high-speed highway, for renewable energy. As a matter of fact, I really do think that we could probably use, our highway right-of-ways as places to do that so that we don't have to go through our national, wild spaces at all or our national parks. And I understand, that these kind of the tax breaks and pricing carbon, to support alternative power may be helpful. And I know that it will be, but remember, with the internet up and running, when it was up and running, Google, eBay, none of those guys needed tax breaks or anything else in order to take advantage, of the wealth of information and productivity across the country that the internet actually, created. And also, please remember that the internet was actually created by the Department of Defense. Yes, we were using to spy on the Russians, but the point is that it created a system that allowed a whole enterprise to flourish on top of it. So a woman actually making trinkets, can actually, in a trailer park in Oklahoma, can sell them to the world via the internet. There's no reason why that same woman, can't put solar panels on her home and sell it back into the grid if by chance we had a national grid itself. The power generating potential of a mountaintop that's actually left in place with a wind turbine on it is actually much more useful than, chopping it up, for a few years of burnable coal and centuries of all that environmental devastation. But this can only happen if our distribution system actually even exists in the first place. The national grid, one that's owned by the government, not by a bunch of people who are private entities that want to own a little piece of the pie. And if that smacks of socialism, so be it. Think of the savings to our environment and our public health, and that we are using so much. We're using so much more of the energy from renewable sources. The green jobs and the stability that we'll be experiencing in our communities. Think of the national security. So whether it's horticultural infrastructure or building the national grid, they both depend on us all seeing our own value tied up in that of others in a way that the pollution-based economy did not allow us to. If one group fails, we all fail. And now is the time for us to recognize that. When we take on the challenges of poverty and the environment at the same time, because they are like this, we uncover the keys to way, way more powerful solutions. We can start restoring and redesigning our cities and supporting, our wetlands, our riverfronts, all that. And we can do that with as much vigor as we choose, but we have to choose. Do we want it all? Or do we want just some to really flourish here? We have to choose the promise of America. It is given to us as a right, but we can choose whether or not we want to fulfill that promise. We have to get up on the mountaintop and actually look out and see what the promised land could be. And when you're there, recognize that it is not white or black or red or brown or yellow. The promised land is only green. Thank you.